Hey everyone, and welcome back to The Explainer. I am absolutely thrilled to have you here today. Okay, we're going to dive right into things because today we are exploring something truly fascinating, the foundational, basic economic systems of non-industrial societies. We're going to completely strip away the complexities of Wall Street, throw out modern global supply chains, and look at the raw, really ingenious ways human beings organize their survival long before factories and corporations ever came onto the scene.
So here is our roadmap for today. First up, the 4 paths to survival. Then we'll transition to the rules of exchange. And finally, we'll compare industrial versus pre-industrial life. Let's get into it.
All right, Section 1, 4 paths to survival, looking at pre-industrial production.
We're starting off with foraging, or hunting and gathering. Now, this is the most basic social unit, and it is entirely reliant on nature for resources. What's super interesting here is that we see a very clear division of labor in these groups. Typically, men take on the hunting or fishing, while women gather fruits and foods from the forest. And hey, this isn't just ancient history. From the Bushmen in the Kalahari Desert of South Africa to the Inuit of Alaska who actually still practice seal hunting today, these highly adaptable foraging methods have sustained human life across incredibly diverse environments, from Asia all the way to the Americas.
Next up, let's look at how this builds into early farming, specifically horticulture. This is all about growing plants using simple tools. Think hoes and digging sticks. A major technique you'll see here is shifting cultivation, often called slash and burn. It's kind of like a recipe. Step 1, local vegetation is killed off using fire. Then Step 2, that burned ash miraculously transforms into a natural fertilizer. Step 3, the soil becomes incredibly fertile while pests get wiped out. But Step 4 is absolutely crucial. The land isn't used constantly. It requires a fallow period, meaning they literally just leave it alone to rest and restore its natural fertility before they even think about planting there again.
And this is what that actually looks like in practice, the physical reality of clearing that local vegetation with fire to prepare the soil. Now, one really important thing to remember about shifting cultivation, like what we see in the Chittagong Hill tracts in Bangladesh, is that while the fields shift from place to allow for those fallow periods, the people's houses and settlements actually stay put. So they rotate the land, but not their homes.
Real quick, before we hit the next survival strategy, we need to define the world we're actually operating in here. We need to understand a subsistence economy. Basically, this means producing items purely for self-consumption and basic survival, not for selling at a market. So whether you're a peasant producing crops on a small scale or a sharecropper working leased land, the ultimate goal isn't to get rich or maximize financial profit. The goal is simply keeping your community fed.
Which brings us to agriculture, or the agrarian society. Now, unlike horticulture, where the land gets a nice long break, in an agrarian society, the land is used constantly, year after year. As you can imagine, this makes it way more labor-intensive. We're talking about highly managed systems like the Sabak irrigation in Bali, Indonesia, where farmers customarily share water, or those magnificent, steep hillside terraces you see in Indonesia and the Philippines. These intense manual technologies allow the land to yield double or even triple crops, which deeply ties power and prestige directly to land ownership.
Our fourth and final path to survival is pastoralism, which focuses entirely on herding animals. And this lifestyle has a massive geographical spread. We're looking at everywhere from the Zulus and Maasai in Africa, stretching across the Middle East, all the way up to the Sami in Northern Europe and the Mongols in Asia. These societies rely on domestic animals for meat and milk, and they'll very often trade those goods with neighboring farmers.
Now, within pastoralism, there are actually 2 very distinct ways these communities move with their herds. The first is pastoral nomadism, where the entire family and their animals move irregularly based on the season, totally without fixed pastures. But the second is transhumance. This is a highly structured seasonal movement. The pastures are fixed, so the people and herds stay in the lower lands during the winter and migrate up to the higher lands in the summer. And what's wild is that in a transhuman system, only some family members actually move with the animals, while the rest stay at home base. We actually still see this practice today by the Kyrgyz ethnic group in China and in Mongolia.
And speaking of Mongolia, just look at this. Pastoralist families here live in yurts, which are these brilliant traditional tents that can be packed up in no time. They travel with their essential animals, like horses and sheep, living directly off the meat and milk and engaging in trade as they move. It is just an incredibly resilient way of life.
So how did they actually distribute all these goods they produced? That brings us to Section 2, the rules of exchange. To figure this out, we have to look at the renowned economic anthropologist Karl Polanyi. He defined 3 core principles of exchange that essentially dictate how goods and services move around within a society. They are market principles, redistribution, and reciprocity. Let's break these down to understand the rules of the game.
We'll start with reciprocity, which usually happens in egalitarian, classless societies between people who are connected by kinship or marriage. And it basically comes in three flavors. First, you have generalized reciprocity. This is exactly like giving a birthday gift to a close family member. You give it freely, you're not expecting a receipt, and you don't expect an immediate return. Then there's balanced reciprocity, which happens between more distant relatives, where there actually is an expectation of a balanced exchange of gifts. Finally, we have negative reciprocity. This occurs entirely outside the social system, and it acts a lot more like a cold, calculated market economy where both sides are basically just trying to get the upper hand.
The second principle is redistribution, and this operates wonderfully simply. First, goods are collected from the local level. Then, they're moved to a central point, maybe a physical storehouse, a regional capital, or just given to a local headman or chief. And once collected, those goods flow right back out. They're redistributed to the society. But the crucial thing here is the why. In these non-industrial systems, a chief redistributing wealth isn't doing it to make a profit. They do it to bring immense prestige and a positive image to themselves and their people.
Polanyi's third principle is market exchange, which governs production with one main goal in mind: maximizing benefit. Transactions happen when goods are purchased, and this relies heavily on something called general-purpose money. This money acts as a universally accepted medium of exchange, a standard of value, and a store of wealth for buying and selling. And obviously, this is the system that feels the most familiar to us today, right?
So, now it's time to hold up a mirror to ourselves. Section 3, Industrial versus Pre-Industrial Life.
In an industrial society, the mode of production is completely transactional. Money buys labor power. We have a boss, we have workers, labor equals money, time is money, and literally everything is judged on performance and output. Half the time, the final product has absolutely nothing to do with the worker personally. But on the non-industrial side, labor is not bought and sold for cash. It is viewed as a moral obligation. It's a duty. It's entirely kin-based, relying on deep bonds of blood and marriage. The cornerstone of this system isn't output at all. It's mutual aid and profound cooperation among the people working together.
The philosophical divide here is just massive. In non-industrial systems, you literally cannot separate the economy from the community. Economic activities are deeply embedded into the society itself. The way you work and trade with someone is indistinguishable from your social relationship with them. Your coworker is your brother. Your trading partner is your cousin. The economy is the society.
Which leaves us with this final thought to ponder. We have undoubtedly gained incredible technological and material wealth through our modern, performance-based market systems. There's no denying that. But looking back at the profound mutual aid and embedded social connections of pre-industrial economies, in our modern industrial rush, where time is money, what essential human connections and moral obligations have we traded away to get here? Thank you so much for joining me on this explainer. I really hope this structure helped illuminate the deep roots of how humans survive and share with one another. Keep questioning, keep learning, and I will see you on the next one.